asks where these songs come from. When you watch their faces, they're not asking where the songs come from.
If invasion is undertaken, the Russians have said that.
They're asking why songs didn't come to them.
Bob Dylan was a name you're supposed to like, you're supposed to revere. But I really knew nothing about the guy other than that he's an American icon. You just need that certain hook, and once you're in it, there's no coming back.
I don't even need to say his name, do I?
There's a reason why Bob Dylan's lyrics have withstood decades of change culturally, politically, because he chose to speak about what was going on at the time.
What attracted me to this movie from the beginning was this question of genius, how it taints and changes your relationships with everyone you love or hate or meet.
It's Bob Dylan, right there.
We're following Bob on his journey to becoming Bob Dylan.
I'm not really interested in cradle-to-grave stories. All this happens in the space of just the years between 61 and 65. This young man arriving into this big town with nothing in his pockets and a guitar on his back. That's what I loved about this period in Dylan's life and in folk history. Timmy is one of the most interesting people to watch because there's something about him that the internal life is visible to the lens.
I'm wondering if she remembers me at all. Many times I've often prayed in the darkness of my night, in the brightness of my day.
Timothy Chalamet as Bob Dylan. Is there anyone better?
Want a peanut? I used to live on these things when I worked at the carnival.
You worked at the carnival?
The preparation didn't feel like preparation. This was like a years-long process of osmosis that I'm terrified to even say goodbye to now.
Please see for me if her hair hangs long. That's the way I remember her best.
He's not only singing the music, but he is playing the guitar, he's playing the harmonica. He's studied Bob as a character, as a person, and he's really created this Bob Dylan that we've never seen on screen before.
Woody wants to hear something.
Timothy exhibited to me dedication and commitment to immersion. It was terrific.
I'm out here 1,000 miles from my home. I'm walking the road other men have gone down.
When someone's in that zone, it radiates outward. He engendered a quality of work all around him.
I'm singing you this song, but I can't sing enough. 'Cause there's not many men that done the things that you've done.
1, 2, 3.
The way he incorporated and encapsulated this, the way he could improvise on the guitar and add a little line here and take a little line there.
Well, don't look at me like that, man. I got no idea how to end that.
You can see how hard he's worked and how much he cares about getting this right. It's not just an impersonation. He has a real interpretation of his own version of Bob.
You used to laugh about.
You got to make the thing live, and I'm proud that we took that leap, I think this is like a faithful celebration of Bob Dylan.
How does it feel? Anyone who's gonna hold your attention on the stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
Not everyone.
Anyone's good.
One of the things that's most important to me in all my movies are the performances. I mean, whether we're talking about Pete Seeger or Joan Baez, I didn't want anyone feeling like they had to do some kind of a impression.
I offered to play a song for the judge up there, but he didn't want to hear it. But I feel like singing.
Pete Seeger, being at that time de facto mayor of the world of folk music, ends up kind of taking this kid in.
A month or so ago, Woody and I met a young man. He sang us a song. Well, it fairly struck us to the ground.
Pete Seeger is sort of a mentor, father figure, and then equally someone who maybe feels like the torch is passing them by.
Did you ever listen to the music you're telling me not to play?
I can see the direction you're going in. I could see it on the last record.
Edward's a movie director himself. He's a really good writer, a brilliant thinker. He couldn't have been a more ideal actor to play this role.
Now, those of you who can't sing that low, we're gonna make you sopranos.
To illuminate what was powerful about that time and admirable about the integrity of those people, it kind of seemed worthy to me.
In many ways, the role of Sylvie in the movie is kind of the one normal person in this world of eccentrics.
What are you doing here?
I'm going to Newport. You want to come?
What? Sylvie Russo is based on Seuss Rotolo. I was really drawn towards Sylvie and Bob's relationship and what a significant special figure she was to him during that period of time. She was on the Free Willin' album cover with Bob, but Bob himself felt like she'd never want to be in the public eye, so he wanted her name to be different, which is actually so touching and moving to me.
You know, folk songs are supposed to stand the test of time. They say no one wants to hear what a kid wrote last month.
Someone at some point had to give the songs a chance.
She sees Bob in a way not many can, sees through him.
Bob and Sylvie have that sort of intimacy that first couples, first loves can have, where they feel like they've known each other a long time.
God made the world in 6 days.
Are you God, Bob?
How many times do I have to say this? Yes.
I always love working with Elle. It's someone I've known a long time.
Timmy and Elle have a trust and a comfort that I think really comes through in the film.
She loved him before he was Bob Dylan, and that's why it's so beautiful. But then she's watching Joan and Bob perform together on stage and just sees how undeniable their chemistry is.
How about saying hello to the man who wrote that one?
Joan, in the context of the movie, and I think in real life, was such an equal to Bob.
Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head, pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
She was so outspoken about so much. To find him putting new words to things that she believed in was just monumental to her.
I'm not the one you want, babe.
I'm not the one you need.
But then there's also this other side of their relationship, which is that Joan is a professional. Bob is kind of a wild card. You never know who's showing up.
No, I'm not gonna be, no, man, it's not a request type concert. Pick someone else, Joan.
Monica was extraordinary. When we got on set, she had totally personified Joan Baez.
Someone to open each and every door, but it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't.
I didn't play guitar and I'd sing in the shower. That was pretty much where I started this.
And she worked so hard over a year or two and just was relentless, both on guitar, in voice.
And I remember just listening to her and just, she's singing that? Is that Joan or is that her? It's her. Wow.
I'll only let you down.
Bobby Dylan, come here, you.
Johnny is a powerful Southern figure, enormous in size, large in stage presence.
Mr. Johnny Cash.
He's a star long before Bob becomes one, but is also a singer-songwriter, and in a way faces similar demons to Bob and feels the pressure to have to keep creating. And I was fascinated by that relationship.
Dear Bob,
track mud on somebody's carpet.
Such different personalities.
I just felt Boyd would have fun with this.
Want a bugle? The thing I love about Johnny Cash is he pokes the bear in the right way.
Ooh! Boyd somehow made it his own.
Not sure they want to hear, but I want to play, Johnny.
I want to hear it.
The whole piece is just a celebration of these people's lives and music and the time.
To get to portray these people, to have all this research, have all this work that we'd put in and studied so hard, and then to just let it go and let the moment take over was magical.
One of the things that I really identified with Bob is that he has all his life resisted being put in a box.
Play it loud.
Jim has that kind of authority. He's a strong presence.
Okay, good, cut.
He feels like a captain of a ship. You know you're in great hands. His confidence and his assuredness is so persuasive.
Opera singer, back in.
Jim was the perfect guy to direct this in that he knew how to make it at an elevated level. You don't see a lot of imagery of Bob like that at the time.
You don't have to be so tight.
Working with Jim makes it like, this is why I got into this. This is why I love movies, because of his love for movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Dylan.
I was young when I left home, and I've been out rambling around, and never wrote a letter to my home.
Bob read my last drafts on the script and just went through them with me page by page. I wanted him to understand that I didn't have some kind of message I want the movie to deliver. I'm interested in a movie that offers the audience all sides of a situation and you find your way.
So this is what?
I don't know.
Jim made me feel that addressing people and music and a time that's incredibly historic, almost mythical, there was a reason to do it.
If invasion is undertaken...
There's a civil war going on right now. Bombs hanging over us. It's not all about the Dust Bowl and Johnny Appleseed anymore.
The time period is fascinating for a variety of reasons. It was a moment of openness in America. From the birth of modern jazz to modern comedy with Lenny Bruce to modern folk music.
The West Village was responsible for Bob Dylan as much as Bob Dylan was responsible for the West Village. It was a small geographical area filled with poets and painters and folk singers, all on top of each other, feeding off of each other, going to the cafes that were every 50 feet and the bars and the galleries. It was kind of daunting and scary to have to recreate.
Where can I find a city block that looks like MacDougal Street? So much of Manhattan, the whole city has been kind of rebuilt. You really can't find the Village or the Lower East Side.
It turns out that this side of the river, particularly Hoboken, New Jersey, looks more like New York did than New York does now. There's a lot of texture and layering and beauty to the New Jersey side. Well, we're standing in the middle of MacDougal Street, as it would have appeared in 1961. Our first anchor that we found was the Kettle of Fish Bar, which is a very important location for us. We were able to kind of expand from that and then add Cafe Wa on the corner here, across from Cafe Reggio, the Minetta Tavern, and then to try to kind of create a highlight reel of the best parts of MacDougal Street in a plausible way.
The way that production design interacts with costumes, interacts with music, interacts with photography has a kind of a magical power to it.
This is me.
Have these custom-made lenses that are a hybrid of very old B-series anamorphic lenses. It just has the feel and the texture of a 70s or 60s movie, you know. It allows you to have a greater depth of field and also being able to go on the streets at night and really take advantage of what New York was like in the 60s.
For me and Faden, we loved how Bob looked with backlight, meaning we loved when his hair came alive like it did on the Greatest Hits album cover. So you're always conscious of these really simple things that in a way help Timmy become the guy.
If you heard down, you found a phone, you thought they were wrong. Can you?
We're in Bob Dylan's apartment, where he lived from 1961 to 1964. This is one of our love letters to Bob Dylan's legacy. We poured thousands of hours into this space to get every single detail as authentic as possible.
When you see photographs of his apartment, he had a Chianti bottle like hanging on the shelves, and he had tons of books, poetry books. He had a Chinese painting, a cup full of feathers. They just look like things that he might have found at a rummage sale or like on the street, or he found in the garbage. The desk he was sitting at, we made it ourselves with the legs and just a plywood top. The oval marble coffee table that he had, he made that. So we found the exact marble and drilled legs into it ourselves.
Every single object in this room has been thought about, down to the mattress, which is a cheap mattress and spongy and worn. All of the objects on the shelves have been sourced to match the research that we found.
Francois was like the all-star of this movie. If you look at Francois' production design at Bob's apartment, you look at image references at the time, I mean, they got the coffee stains right.
Hey! How can we make these settings make the audience feel something? And that's by, like, is it cold or hot or sweaty or greasy or sooty or dirty? All that layering helped it be a very visceral sort of look for the film.
Newport never seen threads like these, man.
I have always been quite a fan of Bob Dylan, and the music is in my DNA.
Ari has an unparalleled eye, an incredible sense of the history of clothes and style.
It's a universal story. It's a young person coming to the big city to find themselves, to create their identity as an artist.
In Timmy's case, there's like 3 really identifiable looks. The kid who arrives in New York, and then the young Bob, kind of once he's got a recording deal, and then the post-64, 65 Bob with the hair and the Ray-Bans.
He was really influenced by Woody Guthrie's sensibility and the way he dressed. He dressed like a working man, like plaid shirts and Pendletons and like a carpenter-style jean. You see Bob Dylan's silhouette change from the early 60s, where he's wearing kind of baggy, shapeless clothes, to the end of our story in the mid-60s, where he's really becoming the Bob Dylan we know today, the icon.
You're Judas! I don't believe you.
He was kind of creating his own style that would last almost 60 years later today to be this kind of rock and roll archetype, the black pea coats, the striped trousers. This is probably one of the largest films that I've ever worked on. We have 4,500 background actors, 4,500 plus costumes. I have 8 tailors that have been working full-time the whole way through the movie. I think we've cleaned out every costume house in this country, so it's been thrilling for me.
Yeah, I'll take that shirt off, man. You're a goddamn clown. It ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. Even you don't know by now.
As a filmmaker, music is a really powerful tool, not only on screen or interacting with images, but even speaking as a writer, it's a real inspiring tool to kind of find a tone.
There's a blanket license for all of Bob's songs for the film, so we're allowed to use any of his material, which is incredible. It's super liberating.
Once upon a time, you're just so fine.
Just sitting down with Jim and picking the songs for the film, figuring out what the repertoire is going to be.
You want to do right by them. You want to do right by this music that changed my life growing up. It changed the life of all of my musical heroes, and it's really important to get it right.
One more, just like that. Here we go.
You used to laugh about.
We prepared 58 pre-records for this film. Day one we got here, Timmy sang live. Really never went back to the pre-records. It was all live all the time.
And what do you do now, my blue-eyed son?
Singing sometimes for 14 hours straight.
Oh, what do you do now, my darling young one?
But I've never seen Timmy get tired, which is astounding.
I'm going back out before the rain starts a-falling.
I tried to, as much as possible, down to every little detail, to emulate as close as we could to those original recordings. There's a good amount of pictures from the Highway 61 sessions. So you can look at the room and you can see what were the drum mics, what were the mics on the amps, what were the amps, what keyboards were there, what's the vocal mic, what's the acoustic guitar mic, you know, what gear was in the studio at the time, what compressors, what preamps. We brought in as much of that as we possibly could.
Every venue that we shoot in, we use a different vintage microphone so that we can create a real tapestry of sounds, and every microphone sounds very different.
Here we are, testing the beautiful 77.
Particularly those period microphones. They have a very specific sound to them.
Can we start again? You keep turning from the mic.
Really diving into Dylan's work from this period, we sort of discovered early on, oh, Bob's voice sounded very different from record to record to record, which is extra challenging for an actor. And so, you know, Timmy and Nick worked in the studio with Jim to find the voice for each specific year.
Let's just do it before this whole thing crashes into the ground.
But I think what would be fun about these scenes too is all the different perspectives we can create. So it won't just be, this is what it sounded like when it was mixed and finished. What did it sound like in the control room as they were still figuring out levels, and what was it like standing in the room with the guys as they were recording?
Who wrote this? He did.
I stepped in the middle of seven sad forests.
As a storyteller, it's my job to create a world in which you fall into it and you forget your own and you start living in theirs.
I feel like we captured the spirit of the music, the spirit of that time, the spirit of a guy who wouldn't let himself be boxed in.